Hello, and welcome to Fighting Over the VCR. My name is Nancy.
My name is Matthew.
And we are going to talk about a couple of sports-related movies tonight.
Yes, sports.
Sports. Later in the podcast, I'm going to talk about Jerry Maguire. But
yes, Nancy's going to talk about Jerry Maguire.
But Matt's going to get us started with Blades of Glory.
Blades of Glory. What can't I say about this movie? Other than it only speaks as loudly as its stars and what the beauty they put on the ice.
Oh my God.
So this movie came out in 2007 and stars Will Ferrell and John Heder as rival Olympic skaters, figure skaters, who get in an altercation and banned from skating until they find a loophole to skate in another division, pairs skating. Now, John Heder's character, named Jimmy McElroy, ice skating's little orphan awesome.
Man, this movie.
He finds with the help of his super fan / stalker Hector, played by Nick Swardson, finds a loophole that if he skates in the pairs division, he can re-enter competitive skating. Well, in an effort to try and find a female to skate with him, he runs into Will Ferrell's character, Chaz Michaels, an ice-devouring sex tornado.
Basically Jim Morrison on ice.
That is definitely one of the inspirations, but kind of dumb. Jim Morrison, but kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And after yet another physical altercation between the two, Jimmy McElroy's former coach, played by Coach Craig T. Nelson, realizes that maybe two men skating together could revolutionize the sport. This concept may seem ridiculous.
It is.
It's very ridiculous.
It is so funny.
And the reason why this movie is so great, and I love this movie, is it takes the chic and well-structured and like purity of the sport of ice skating and flips it on its ass. It is so great. And then, they become a pairs team. They start competing. They have a new set of rivals that are another pair, brother and sister Strauns and Fairchild von Waldenberg, played by Amy Poehler and Will Arnett.
And they were married at the time, weren't they?
They were married at the time.
In real
life, but they were playing brother and sister.
Twin brother and sister, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And Pam Beesly, Jenna Fisher, played their younger sister. She's so great.
Jenna Fisher's her real name.
I know.
Pam Beesly is who
Office.
You think her real name is from The Office, but
I'm watching a lot of
name.
The Office right now, so...
This movie, when the trailer came out for this movie, I remember thinking like, that is so just amazingly creative and ridiculous. I have to go see this.
Yeah.
So my wife and I went and saw this in the theater. I just remember like thinking like, wow, that was a pretty good movie. And then we rented it and watched it again. And again, and we bought it, and we kept watching it over and over again, and I just love this movie.
Yeah.
It is so funny. I have worked there is some amazing comedic writing in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
From one-liner to one-liner that I have worked into my daily vernacular. There's something about this movie. Like it should have made my top 10 when I think about it in some ways.
What would you have eliminated to make room for this movie?
I don't know. There's probably...
Maybe you should have eliminated Lost Highway.
Maybe you should have eliminated Lost Highway. Nancy. I think I'll get back we'll get back to that when we start talking about Jerry Maguire. Jerry Maguire. Anyway, but I just really love this movie. From the intro, like the first 15 minutes of this movie are you kind of don't stop laughing. It is so freaking funny. I can't get enough of this movie.
So I watched a ton of ice skating growing up. I mean, and did you watch
Mom,
it? Did you?
Mom loved ice skating, and I would watch it when Mom was watching
Saturday
it.
afternoons.
During the Olympics or during the Nationals or whatever.
Yeah, it was definitely my favorite thing in the Olympics back when we were younger.
And we kind of, I think also because of like our age and when we grew up and when it was happening, living in the Bay Area, we had Kristi Yamaguchi here, so it was on TV. And I think specifically also in our area it was being aired because people who knew Kristi Yamaguchi wanted to be in it. Now, unfortunately, Kristi Yamaguchi does not make an appearance in this, but like Brian Boitano, Nancy Kerrigan, Peggy Fleming, a lot of
Scott Hamill.
Scott Hamilton.
Yeah.
Scott Hamilton. So Scott Hamilton, like he does, or did, I don't know if he still does, but like he did on TV, does commentary. He does commentary in this, and he is one of the him and the other commentator whose name I can't remember, their dialogue is like the hidden gold in this movie. I mean, it is so great.
Well, I think because we also, like, we were prime ice skating viewers when a lot of the controversy happened. Like, I remember vividly, like, the Nancy Kerrigan, Tonya Harding incidents, and I think that a lot of the rivalry in this movie is pulled right out from that. I mean, obviously, it's not exactly like Nancy Kerrigan and Tonya Harding because no one hired someone to whack someone's leg or anything, but I mean, just physical violence between Chaz Michael-Michaels and John McElroy,
Jimmy McElroy, and Chaz Michael-Michaels. Well, the Von Waldenbergs, though, they eventually get dirty, and there's at one point where they kind of reference the whole Tonya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan thing, where they say, maybe he might have an accident, somewhere below the knee or above the ankle, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, ice skating itself, it's a beautiful sport. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to watch. It's amazing to watch people move the way that they do on the ice. But there is, I mean, it's primed to be made fun of.
There's a stick up the buttness.
Yeah, I mean, there's... I think you get exposed, especially kind of older ice skating from the 70s and 80s. You could say that they probably use more like classical music and things like that. Like it had that sense. And then this movie really pokes fun at that.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, especially when Chaz Michael-Michaels skates into the rink to stroke me. I've never laughed harder in my life.
Well, so let's talk about the musical choices. Okay, so when we first meet Chaz Michael-Michaels, he skates to Stroke Me, which is a song that I would never really like, but now I love that song because of this movie. So this movie has sold me on a song that is not that great, but is fun because it makes me think of this movie. They pick the horrible Aerosmith song from Armageddon to dance to, or skate to, and that whole scene is a great scene, and it's the only time, like, watching this movie is the only time I will purposely have to listen to that song because it's so terrible. Sorry, people who love that song, but no, I'm not sorry. It's terrible. And then the last song that they perform to is the Flash, which is the Flash Gordon theme by Queen. Excellent. Which is amazing. The whole scene is amazing, and one of the reasons why, like, their skating ability and why they take everyone by storm is because it's two men. The idea is, like, they can do things that a man and a woman can't do on the ice, which has a little bit of a misogynistic tone, but I mean,
it's physics.
It's physics. It's physics. That's right.
It's physics.
But they start some controversy by doing this. At one point, they're interviewing people about what they think about this happening, and one gentleman is asked like, well, what do you think about it? And he's holding a hot dog bun with 2 hot dogs in it, and says, "What do you think? You think that looks right?"
Yeah, it is so funny because again, it takes itself so seriously.
The movie, that is the way that the movie is done is so well done because the tone of it is very serious. Like they at no point think that they're being ridiculous, but it's so funny because after one of the best scenes and one of the lines that I kind of quote a lot is they after they have announced that they're going to be a team, it cuts to Strauss and Fairchild watching it on the news, watching the report on the news about it. And one of the great things about the two of them is they're constantly dressed in outfits that look like skating costumes. You're not seeing them in jeans. You never see them in regular clothes. Everything that they are wearing is skating costumes. Well, so they're watching the news and they're just in shock. They're like, I can't believe they're making such a farce of their sport. And Strauss is laying on a bearskin rug, stroking the teeth of the bear that still has the head on. He goes, man, these guys are just a couple of freaks.
Yeah. Will Arnett is so creepy and silly in this movie.
And then there's a couple little subplots in the movie. Jimmy is an orphan who doesn't he gets rejected by the rich man who adopted him, who paid to have him trained into an Olympic athlete. And so he's never really had a good family relationship. And then Chaz, he's kind of grown up, in the tough streets of Detroit in their underground ice skating scene. And, at one point during an interview, hard life, if you call a 9-year-old with a 35-year-old girlfriend, hard. And then, and also Chaz Michael is a sex addict.
Oh my God.
It's a real disease. There's medicine and stuff for it. Oh, but no, one of the main subplots in the movie, which then gets twisted, is Jenna Fischer's character, Katie, the youngest von Waldenberg, starts having a relationship with Jimmy McElroy. There's some comic gold in some of their scenes and how they hook up and everything. But that gets twisted to try and break the pair of Jimmy and Chaz apart.
Yeah. Love triangle.
To a love triangle that is spawned by the von Waldenbergs. So, I mean, there's just so many things in this movie that just make me laugh. And I put it on. I don't stop laughing. It makes me feel good. This is. It's pretty clear. This is my favorite Will Ferrell movie. Yeah. I've never seen a Will Ferrell movie more than this one.
Yeah.
If I was to rank them, I can't even think off the top of my head which ones I really like. I like Anchorman. I think that there is a lot of funny things in Anchorman, but for some reason I just can't watch that over and over again. And maybe it's his character, maybe it's
Ron Burgundy.
Ron Burgundy, yeah. I
think I've seen it once. I don't really remember. Funny. I don't remember much of it.
It's definitely funny. I mean, Paul Rudd and Steve Carell. Another connection to The Office. Definitely like this one more. And then I think the only other one that I've watched multiple times, just because it's always on around Christmas, is Elf, which is pretty. It's a good Christmas movie. Some people really love it as a Christmas movie. I don't think it's bad. It has some funny parts in it. I'm not a huge fan of James Caan in that movie. I think the only thing I really like him in is Misery and The Godfather.
Yeah. Have you seen The Other Guys with Donnie Wahlberg or with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell?
Yes, I have seen that, and I was not really super happy about that movie.
Oh, really? Yeah, I like that one a lot.
like they advertised it as also having The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson in it,
for like 8 minutes.
And well, that's the thing is I was like, oh man, that'd be awesome that they're in it, and they're only in it for like the opening credits, pretty much. Ricky Bobby, not into that, but I'm also not a fan of car racing. I haven't seen like the 1 or 2 serious movies he's made.
Yeah,
but
I think he did a movie called Stranger Than Fiction, which
Stranger
was really
Than
good.
Fiction. Yeah, I haven't seen that.
That's good.
You liked it? Okay.
Yeah.
And then like Semi-Pro, the basketball one.
Never saw it.
I think I saw it once. Not that great, but as far as Will Ferrell goes, I mean, this one takes the cake for me. I mean, I love the swagger that he claims to have.
Oh yeah, it's
and
so
I mean,
great.
In the opening scene, just to I mean, you'll see it in the first 10 minutes of the movie, but when he first skates, like women are throwing their underwear at him.
Yeah.
I mean, and he kind of like does the whole like fishing thing and then reels in someone and he skates towards a woman. That's an actual like real ice skater, like a professional ice skater from like the 50s or 60s that he does that to. It's great. Wow. And then or maybe it was the 80s. I don't want to like make her sound older than she was, but sometimes I forget that the 80s were almost 40 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, he does things that you can tell that he's the kind of person that is making choices because he thinks they're cool. Like with all his tattoos, using horse shampoo.
Mane and tail. Help yourself to the mane and tail all you want, but don't you dare touch the verticoli. I could not love a human baby more than I love this brush.
Yeah, he is so funny. I mean, he's the reason I like this movie a lot.
And you know,
and Craig T. Nelson.
Craig T. Nelson is great. He really kind of takes his character from Coach a little bit and adds it to this movie. I mean, this is our second Craig T. Nelson movie after Poltergeist, and he definitely stands out as he's really kind of like the third main character in this movie because he's got tons of.
He's the reason that they're able to. He's the one who can see the vision of the two of them together as male pair skaters.
And even he has kind of a history, which is kind of funny.
He absolutely has a history.
Which is pretty funny.
Goes all the way to North Korea. Come on.
Yes. It's the only place that they would ever attempt that trick.
Oh my God. Yeah, this movie is so funny. We all watched it together last weekend. I mean, this was maybe the third time I've seen it in so it came out 12 years ago. I've maybe seen it 3 times, and I laughed so hard.
Nancy was like,
I couldn't stop me. It was awesome.
She was laughing a lot. She was very tired, which I think might have kind of relaxed. It might have relaxed you, in a way. But I mean, this movie brings out the smiles as far as I'm concerned. And some people might watch it and be like, this movie is ridiculous, I can't get into this, but maybe those people don't know what funny is. I don't know. I love this movie.
I have a harder time with comedies most of like I'm pickier. I'm a lot more particular with comedies in general than other genres.
Yeah.
But this one is really for me. I love it.
Well, and there's lots of and so much of the humor is so subtle. Like if you're not paying attention to like some of the things that they're saying, like even like under their breath, you're missing so much. Yeah. So much.
I do think if you've ever had a history of enjoying ice skating, which honestly I think until curling became a more popular winter, like an Olympic sport, or some of the other flashier Olympic sports. I mean, ice skating was kind of the main star of Olympics, especially in the 80s and 90s when we didn't have 800 TV channels and 38 streaming methods, and when really everyone was watching the Winter Olympics, or at least turned them on at some point. And ice skating, because there's so many different rounds, between the
Oh.
female singles and the freestyle, and then the short program and the long program and the this and the that. There's a lot of opportunity to land on ice skating at some point during the 2-week Olympics.
Oh, and then there's doubles and ice dancing and
Exactly.
all of this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
There's a lot
so
of it.
many. There's.
I think it's also something that is like easy to televise for a winter
Yeah.
sport, to where you can watch it and really.
Well, because it's in a rink. It's
Yeah.
in an arena versus
but
a mountain sport.
But here's the thing though is, I mean, ice skating as a sport is extremely difficult for anyone to really do.
Have you ever ice skated?
No.
Oh, I've tried a couple of times.
No.
It is really hard.
I can barely roller skate. I can barely walk sometimes.
It is killer. It's killer on your ankles. I mean,
Yeah.
it is not easy.
Right. So, I mean, that's why I admire ice hockey so much. I mean, the fact that they have to skate fast and be able to stop and turn. Oh, and by the way, they also have to hit a puck.
Yeah.
I mean, then you add you take something like that where you're on ice, and then you add it to like where everything has to have like flawless moves. But I think that's one of the things that I think is really kind of ridiculous in a real life way, is the people doing what they're doing when they're ice skating is amazing. They're
In a performance?
in an actual performance. I would give all of them like the highest number just based on the fact that they can freaking do it, unless they fall. And rarely do they actually fall.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I think the thing that happens a lot of the time is they're supposed to do like a triple and then a double, and something happens and they end up doing a double and a double. And then so they get knocked for all these technical points.
but I mean, they're moving so fast. Sometimes I also think like, it's so the judging of it is so just like, oh, well, I didn't think that person did it exactly perfect. Oh, I'll give them a 5.9 instead of a 6. It just seems so. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? It's super subjective.
That's the thing. I mean, and I think a Summer Olympic sport that similar to this would be like gymnastics.
Yes, exactly.
As a viewer, especially if you're a spectator that's not immersed in the sport, you're just kind of enjoying it. You're not involved in you don't know all the specifics of exactly everything they're supposed to be. You don't know how to look for the faults unless you're listening to Scott Hamilton tell you what they did when they screwed up. Everything looks amazing. So what could they possibly be doing wrong?
Right.
And these guys. But what I think is also great about Blades of Glory is these two characters are so opposite of each other.
Oh yeah, you have very straight-laced Jimmy McElroy, who is like this very prim and proper, clean-cut, elegant-looking person, and then you have Chaz Michaels, who's kind of, at one point he's
Jim Morrison.
Well, he's getting out of the shower. He's Jim Morrison, like late Jim Morrison with the beard.
Yeah.
Minus the beard in the movie.
Yeah.
But there's a part where he's getting out of the shower, and he's just got like a towel wrapped around him and a towel on his head, and he goes, "You see that? That's what a skater's body really looks like."
Yeah, it's very silly.
He's kind of sporting a dad bod at that point.
Oh yeah, Will Ferrell is very he's very uninhibited, and that makes it so fun.
I think one of the other things that really kind of made me like this movie so much was when it came out. I was like, "Oh, Mom loves this." She loves ice skating. Yeah. So we took it over to Mom and Dad's house, and we're like, "Mom, you gotta watch this movie." And she watched it with it, and she was cracking up within the first 15 minutes. She was cracking up. So she got it.
Yeah,
and that made me enjoy this even more. Here's someone who doesn't feel like, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're making fun of this sport." No, they did it they do it in a way that they even had people from the ice skating world in the movie. So obviously they wouldn't be in a movie that was they understand, they get it.
Yeah.
Which also makes people think makes it the sport cooler, because this movie was able to make fun of the sport in a way that in a certain way it almost made it seem like maybe these people are cool for doing this.
I mean, I'm trying to think. There was a movie in the mid or early mid 90s about an ice skater.
Was it the one where where the rom-com where she teams up with the hockey player? It's probably not that good.
Moira Kelly was in a movie called The Cutting Edge in 92. So yeah, 1992. That's the year that like Nancy Kerrigan was starting to get really big. Katarina Witt, I think, was kind of on the tail end of her big career, and I'm not sure if Christy Yamaguchi was already skating in 92 or not. I think she may have been. I'm
not sure.
The Tonya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan stuff, I believe, happened in 94. Again, we watched I, Tonya a couple years ago. It's been a while. But yeah, this Cutting Edge movie came out right in the middle of all that. So ice skating was kind of a big deal. But yeah, it took itself a lot more seriously in a different way than Blades of Glory. Blades of Glory is clearly a satire.
Yes. I think that, if I was to pick my favorite character, Will Ferrell as Chad Michael Michaels is my favorite character in this movie. I know it seems like the obvious choice, but his lines just crack me up. Bill Hader, he's really good in this part, and there's some funny things that happen with him, but he just doesn't stand out as much as Will Ferrell's character. I just remembered a couple other movies that Will Ferrell's been in. That
John Hader.
I was
gonna say Bill Hader.
No, not Bill Hader.
We're not talking about
John
Barry.
Hader. John Hader. Sorry.
It's okay.
Bill Hader is amazing, and if you're not watching Barry,
get on it.
Get on it. I guess the only other role that he really stands out to me in, where I find him really funny, and it's a movie that, again, like I watched it and I was like, I don't know about this movie, and then I started watching it, and every time I watch it I laugh, is when he plays Mugatu in Zoolander.
Oh yeah.
So good.
Oh yeah. He's amazing.
What I was going to say about John Hader is he got big because of Napoleon Dynamite, and I just did not get Napoleon Dynamite.
I've never seen it.
People thought it was hilarious, and I just never got it. And
See, that's not an endorsement for me to ever try and watch it.
I didn't. I almost felt like it was kind of making fun of him.
Oh,
by liking it, I don't know. I just couldn't get into it. But that's the movie. Movie that really kind of put him on the map. Then the only other movie I can think of, really that stands out is this movie that he was been in. I know he's done a couple other movies, but I also know that in doing my research that he grew up in the Mormon Church.
Oh,
he actually did his Mormon mission in Japan, and that's why in one of the scenes he talks to a Japanese reporter and he actually speaks fluent Japanese. But also he kind of nixed some of the stuff that some of the jokes. He was like, I don't feel comfortable with that.
Oh,
in some of the stuff. So it is what it is, I guess. I'm not gonna go on a religious tirade. But
I never saw Napoleon Dynamite, but I really appreciated when Hunter Pence dressed up like him for Halloween. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
That was excellent.
I do. But and so Will Ferrell,
your favorite
as Chad Michael Michaels, an ice devouring sex tornado. Whose character also has a sensitive side. He wrote a book of poetry called "Let Me Put My Poems in You."
I mean, okay, so his character is certainly the most memorable for me. Like I said, it's probably been at least 7-8 years since I'd seen this movie, and I remembered most of everything I remembered about this movie was him. So yes, it would be easy to say he's my favorite character, but you gotta respect Craig T. Nelson in this movie.
Oh,
he
absolutely.
Is so damn funny. I mean,
he's really good.
He's great. I mean, I had forgotten that Jenna Fisher was even in this movie.
Oh, really?
Because it had been so long, and I mean, yeah, she's really good in it, but the role with her and the twins is just kind of like, yeah. I mean, it's important, and but no, Craig T. Nelson.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
And I mean, these characters hated each other. They were constantly bickering. The only reason they got along was because he forced them to. I mean, he made them sleep in bunk beds.
He gave them the option. I mean,
he gave them the option, but I mean, he knew that they needed the sport. Like, it was one of those things where when you see an athlete or anyone who has a really incredible talent, when they're not using their talent, that, they feel like they're wasting their lives or whatever. So he was able to give them an opportunity to figure out how to use it again.
Well, what he figured out was, see if you can answer this question. What is it that Jimmy and Chaz had that no other pair of skaters had?
2 wieners.
Twin dongs. Twin dongs. That's right.
Oh man, the scenes of them practicing. What was the name of that stunt? The something Lotus.
The Iron Lotus.
The Iron Lotus. When they had the camera angle, like facing up on Will Ferrell's face, but then facing down on John Hader's face. I mean, just that alone. And then all the mannequin heads laying around the ice rink. I mean, I think they're like 50 or 60 when he was trying to practice that move.
I've almost got it.
Oh my God. It just, and then in the big skate when it has to switch.
Yeah.
Oh, everything about it.
Like, for me to find my favorite scene in the movie is, again, it's hard when you like a movie like as much as anyone does, like any movie. It's hard to find what your favorite scene is unless it totally stands out. I mean, I just so love the opening montages, like where they're introducing the two of them in their history. But because the one about Chaz Michaels is amazing. But there's a scene where after they've been kicked out of ice skating and they both end up with like day jobs. Chaz has made his way to play the evil wizard in a ice show called the Grumplets and the Woodland Fairies or something like that. It's
totally like a knockoff Disney on Ice.
Yeah, and he does like every performance drunk, and at one point he's just hammered, and he's got this giant head on, and they put the way they film it is they put a camera so you could see his actual face inside the head with like a microphone.
Yeah.
And he's like, I am a human onion. And he throws up in the helmet or in the hat. And then at one point he's like, hey, this is my friend Barry. One time he told me he had a third ball. Blah! I mean, and I don't like that kind of humor, but it was so perfectly timed. Yeah. And then he goes, uh-oh, here comes the encore. and there's times where I've like used that in real life, not about vomiting, but like, here comes the encore. It was just, that scene, I die laughing every time.
My favorite, I don't have just one favorite scene, but my favorite scenes are when they're when they're competing on the ice, like just all of them. I can't pick a favorite one. They're all so funny.
Well, I mean, I think that like Chaz's whole first performance when he's solo to Stroke Me, like is just so. Jimmy's whole thing is like technique and making sure that like you follow the choreography perfectly and everything, and elegance, where Chaz is all about like improvisation, you know, like
he's very rebellious,
and I'm the steak and you're the sizzle, you know, whatever that kind of. I think that one really stands out to me, but I really like the performance when they do Flash.
Oh yeah.
That, I mean, just their costumes with like the lights on them and everything like that, they really take it to another level. But it's also because it's not the horrible Aerosmith song.
I think because they introduced this this near impossible trick, the Iron Lotus, it really brings an element of life or death.
Yeah.
Into the movie. It's like whoever thinks of ice skating as being a life or death sport.
Twin dongs.
Twin dongs.
So anyway, I really enjoyed this movie. I'm glad that we got to rewatch it. It's probably the second or third time I've watched it.
This year,
maybe this year. Like if it's on TV, I absolutely stop and I'll just watch like 10 minutes of it, and it'll just brighten my day. I just like it. So before we move on to Jerry Maguire, I just wanted to do a little jibber jabber.
Okay.
And just ask everyone who has listened to us, and if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, particularly, I'm going to make this easy for you. Please do us a favor and rate us. Leave a comment, rate us 5 stars, and
or whatever you feel is worthy,
or 5 stars, and 6.0, 6.0, 6.0. Just
spread the word.
Spread the word. It'd be fun. I think that it'd make us feel nice. I don't know.
Yeah, we love new listeners. It's great to see
see the comments from everybody. I mean, if you're on your podcast app, just kind of scroll up a little bit,
hit
subscribe, and then maybe like
a little higher.
Hit the little rating one, and then pick some stars. Hopefully, you go all the way to the right, and then leave a little comment like "kind of funny" or "made my drive home nice" or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. So I'm going to throw it over to Nancy to talk about Jerry Maguire. And yeah, go ahead.
So I'm going to start by saying, well, this is our 3rd Cameron Crowe movie.
Yes.
Which is great.
Yeah, he does. He's done a great job on those first 2 movies we talked about.
This also, this happens to be my favorite Tom Cruise movie.
It's a tolerable Tom Cruise movie for a couple minutes of it, yeah.
We grew up watching Top Gun and watching Tom Cruise in the 80s be the best at whatever he was doing. And this movie is him not being the best at anything. And that initial premise is a reason why I love it. He is instantly humbled at the very beginning of the movie and has to spend the entire movie figuring himself out and rebuilding. And that in itself was a very different kind of story for him to be part of. Plus, in his entire acting career, I think he looks the best in this movie than he ever did before and after. Like, I think this is like peak attractiveness for Tom Cruise, even though he's never really been my type, but I think he's pretty cute in this. And it has Renee Zellweger, and I think this was like her real big splash in cinema. This was before like Bridget Jones and Chicago and some other films that she's done. Has Oscar-winning Cuba Gooding Jr. as Rod Tidwell, and the amazing Regina King as his wife Marcy, and Bonnie Hunt as Renee Zellweger's sister. She's incredible. And then a really cute little kid named Ray.
You're forgetting now, formerly little chubby kid, now extremely hot, according to you, Jerry O'Connell.
Well, yeah. Well, Jerry O'Connell's a very minor role in this movie. But he's in this movie. Beau Bridges playing his dad. And then biggest giant jerk in the movie is a tie between Kelly Preston and
Jay Moore.
Oh, yeah. They're both disgusting assholes in this movie. But, so why did we pair this movie with Blades of Glory? Well, they are both about sports. Like, on the surface, they're both about sports because Jerry Maguire is a sports agent. And also, I had never knew about sports agents before watching this movie. It came out in 96. I'm a moderate sports follower. Matt is certainly a much bigger sports fan than I am.
Much.
At any time of year, there's at least 1 or 2 sports that he's very interested in. In fact, there'll be plenty of times we'll talk about, do you watch this show? Do you watch this show? No, I watch a lot of sports.
No, I was watching the game.
The
game was on. What were you doing? Why weren't you watching the game?
Yeah, in fact...
fair weather fan.
In fact, in early spring, when basketball playoffs and hockey playoffs and baseball have just all when baseball's just starting, it's like... It's a miracle we're able to squeeze in any movie watching because Matt's very busy with lots of sports.
I've made it a priority to make sure my movies get watched, so thank you very much. I definitely...
Oh, no.
My heart is in this.
Oh, I know it is. I know it is, but you give up a lot of other extracurricular television watching because of sports.
Yeah. I like my sports.
So before we dive,
I would say that as a sports fan, and if I was watching this movie from a sports fan angle,
yes,
this definitely it falls under the rom-com kind of category.
But I mean, at least 50% of the movie involves him with negotiating, or he's with Rod, and for the most part,
being self-involved.
No. It's always interesting when one of us really dislikes a movie, and we have to talk about it.
Well, why don't you just continue and talk about all the things you love about this movie, and then I will. I will give you open floor.
Okay. Well, I haven't. So I've seen this movie maybe 4 or 5 times. I mean, because there's so many things I like to watch, especially in the last 10, 15 years. I don't watch things over and over and over again. We did that as kids because we didn't have as much. The options of things to watch was more limited. So really in the last 10, 15 years, I'm not watching things more than once or twice. So I've probably seen Jerry Maguire maybe 4 times now. I can't remember if I saw it in the theater. Maybe I did. But I've definitely seen it a few times. I own the DVD. I watched it on DVD. The Cameron Crowe dialogue in this movie is fantastic. I'm trying to think of, what's my favorite scene? And I can't think of a single scene that I like more than another because, there's other scenes that aren't as good, especially anything with Kelly Preston. She makes me crazy. But, I think the dialogue just crackles. It's so good.
Did you know the human head weighs 8 pounds?
Did you know my neighbor has 3 bunnies? And each character has a unique voice. The Tidwells have their language. Bonnie Hunt has her kind of language. It's not like an Aaron Sorkin movie or television show where every character kind of sounds like they talk the same. Clearly, you and I don't speak in the same way. And people know, oh, that's Matt's style of talking. This is Nancy's style. Cameron Crowe does a great job of making everyone sound very unique. But the dialogue is just on fire in this movie. And so many great... and I know you're not into romantic comedies, but this movie is full of some of the greatest lines. You complete me. You had me at hello. I can't rattle them all off right now. But a non-romantic comedy line that this movie is all about, and I don't know if we've revealed this before or not, but I've been in accounting my whole professional life, and most of my accounting has involved accounts receivable. Show me the money. I have been saying this for 20-something years, and thank you, Rod Tidwell, for giving me that line. I don't know. Matt is just shaking his head. He is so disapproving of this. It's too bad. I think the chemistry with Renee Zellweger and Tom Cruise was great. I think watching him struggle with trying to figure out, I'm a failure in my professional life right now, but I want to be there for this person, and how do I make that work, and how much can I really give of myself if I feel like I'm a total mess, and her having to say, look, we can't just be polite for 10 years, and then he kind of goes off and figures it out, and the contrast with Jerry Maguire and Dorothy with the Tidwells is great. And, even though Jerry Maguire is feeling, because he's so competitive, feeling like, oh, wait a minute, is there something wrong with us because we're not as into PDA as the Tidwells are? What's wrong with us? And, Rod is constantly needling him.
He uses Quan.
The Quan, the ambassador of Quan. Another thing I'll mention is Rod Tidwell, and something to notice at this stage in our lives, because we've both been working for many, many years. Rod Tidwell is a really disgruntled employee. We have all worked with someone like Rod Tidwell. Someone who stays at a job way too long and is just super grouchy and has been really unhappy. And instead of just finding a little bit of joy in that job, they're bitching and moaning all the damn time. And you really just want to smack them because they make people around them miserable. they're constantly feeling disrespected, and why didn't I get a bigger raise, or why didn't I get that big bonus, or whatever.
Because he's full of himself and thinks that he deserves more than anyone else.
Well, but I mean, again, he's an athlete. Athletes are competitive, and he's got concerns about their future. Knows that as a football player, your window of how long you can play the sport is really, really limited.
True.
And he was at the tail end of his career, but he is a really goddamn disgruntled employee, and Jerry Maguire has to beat him up against the head about it and said, "Look, you're not getting the offers you want because you're a jerk."
That's not why he wasn't getting the offers he wanted.
It was because he was a shrimp.
It was because
Glenn Fry was an asshole to him.
He needed to be a team player, but not just be a team player. He also needed to play better. I mean, he was worried. One of my biggest problems with Rod Tidwell is just he felt like he was way better than the stats were showing.
Although, didn't they say the year before he broken a bunch of records?
Yeah, but...
And those are stats?
Yeah, but just because you have those stats, if you don't continue doing that and you just live off your legacy, off of someone else, and think that someone's just going to hand you a big contract... I mean, he was in his contract year. It was the year for him to perform.
Yeah. Well, as someone who loves as many sports as you do, we've seen this countless times.
Oh, yeah.
How many times have we seen someone get signed that never really earns the money that they...
It does, but I mean, a lot of contracts are based off of prior performance. Like you're getting rewarded for... You're kind of getting rewarded for what you've already done and not just what you might do.
Yeah.
And that's why it's hard. I mean, that's why you have agents who have to sell you. Like, look at what he did this last year. He could do that for you, but he wants to get paid what he deserves, and he doesn't want to get treated like shit. I get that. I mean, as a sports fan, I understand that. And I've seen lots of players, throughout my sports watching life, because free agency's been around my whole life, kind of be in this kind of position where, they hold out, they do whatever they can to get as much money as possible. And there's lots of other ways for them to make money with endorsements and whatnot. But I think that's where he was getting frustrated with Jerry in the movie, is he felt like he was like, as a person who lives in the Bay Area, I hate how he would compare himself to Jerry Rice. That was ridiculous. Okay.
Yeah. Jerry Rice is like
Jerry
a
Rice
legend.
He's the GOAT. He is the greatest of all time at his position.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to try and argue that, just walk away, because you're not going to win that argument.
Yeah.
And
he won Dancing with the Stars.
And he won Dancing with the Stars. So I hate the fact that he makes comparisons to that.
Yeah.
To him, thinking like he deserves all this money.
Yeah.
And Jerry Rice was not, from what the public could see, was not that kind of player.
He drops in on people's weddings. This is something Jerry Rice does nowadays. Yeah. It seems like he's just a generally jovial person.
Or he also likes to be, likes to party and be kind of put himself out there. I mean, he's not going in there wearing a mask so no one knows who he is.
He understands public relations.
Yes, he does. He understands public relations. Something that Rod Tidwell did not.
No, Rod Tidwell was very big baby.
Which made it hard for Jerry to get him endorsements.
Yep.
So
and Jerry effectively lost other clients because he was having to
cater to Rod Tidwell
and yell and scream at that office, and as all the phone lines were hanging up on him because he couldn't get to them. And he certainly comes off as an unreasonable athlete.
Yeah. Well,
so Rod Tidwell, I'm going to guess, will not be your favorite character.
No. No. Well, okay, so you're kind of taking the angle of Jerry was a failure, and he's trying to he's being humbled by his failure.
I wouldn't say failure, I would say he has stumbled. I don't want to say like he's completely lost everything, but he's at a low. He's definitely at a low. Like I'm not going to call him a loser like Avery, because that's just mean and unfair.
Okay.
But he's definitely not doing the Tom Cruise role. Like, this is not your typical I'm the best fighter jet pilot. I'm not the best car racer. I'm not the best
bottle twirler, like in cocktail.
Exactly.
Like in cocktail.
I'm not the best pool player. I'm not the best boxer. I mean, he was the best for most of our experience watching him from the 80s on. So for 10 years after Top Gun, for him to have a completely different kind of role, it was like, finally. So
did this come out
in 96?
Did this come out before or after Eyes Wide Shut?
Before
Eyes Wide Shut?
I think Eyes Wide Shut was like 99 or 2000.
But it was the first movie
before.
that he did. It was and it was the first movie he did with Cameron Crowe, so it's not.
Yeah, it's not after
Vanilla Sky.
Yeah, Vanilla Sky was later.
Okay, because see, this is my thing. The movie starts with him having this epiphany and writing his mission statement.
Epiphany,
right?
Yeah, epiphany.
Epiphany, thank you. And writing his mission statement, basically about how they need to change the way they do their job.
Yeah, change the culture.
Change the culture. And then he gets all these printouts of it done, has everyone in his office and at like this convention that they're at or whatever read it, and then he gets fired for writing it. And then he does whatever he can to kind of keep his career going, and he thinks he's a failure, blah, blah, blah.
Well, he panics the morning after, because he'd done this like in the middle of the night, went to like Kinko's at 2 a.m, and then when he woke up the next morning and realized, oh, wait a minute. So he instantly knew
but the reason why
it was maybe a wrong move for his career.
But the reason he writes it is not because he's trying to make his career better. The reason he writes it is because there's like this whole montage before while he's writing it. The whole reason he writes it is because he's kind of having like this idea like, I'm not happy.
Nope.
I'm not happy doing this. So,
and working with players that are getting really injured. I mean, that hockey player who was so injured, and the son confronted him about it.
And then we have to watch 2 hours of a movie where he's basically going back to doing what he was doing that he hated. And then at the end of the movie, he finally, after he's, helped Rod, he's kind of has his epiphany again, because he sees Rod on the ground, thinking that his one friend and one client might be hurt, and he might have ruined his life. Then he finally sees that, and then again he's back to no, I was doing what I should have been doing, and it goes back to full circle. And then, oh my God, look, I have one client and I'm happy doing that, and I'm keeping him happy, and I'm not like Mr. Hot Shit like I was before, but now I actually feel like I can do something with some integrity, blah, 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 blah.
Okay. Yeah. But see,
I guess that's why I guess it's like, so I'm basically watching a whole movie where I'm like annoyed at the fact that, hey, this guy might have some integrity. Oh wait, he just lost it all. Maybe by the end of this movie he'll get it all back.
Well, let's throw a caveat out here. Being that this movie came out 23 years ago, and I don't know if this is what you're getting at, the research into traumatic brain injuries hadn't really kicked in the same way it has in like the last 5 or 6 years. So watching people play football and get injured in football didn't have the same kind of impact, I feel like it does now. Like, I don't know that many people that are rushing out to get their kids to play football.
No, a lot of people.
It's changed. There's a lot of
statistics show that the numbers of people not playing football. I mean, of parents not having their kids play football because of possible injury is going up. A lot of parents are questioning whether to have their kids play.
So
and athletes who are like two sport athletes are choosing less physically harmful sports, even if they like Jeff Samardzija, who's a pitcher who's a pitcher, he was a star wide receiver in college, and he had a choice to choose between football and baseball, and he chose baseball. And he probably made the smart move because his career is going to be a hell of a lot longer playing baseball, throwing a ball, than it would be, getting tackled. And you don't know what your life is going to be like. So
your view of this movie in terms of he has this kind of crisis of conscience at the very beginning of the movie, writes this mission statement / memo, and has this deep moment of inspiration, which then Dorothy responds to. Dorothy is very, very moved by
Dorothy, who believes in him most of the most of the movie, and then he ultimately shits on her too.
Well, so
because he's so. I mean, really, what he could have done was say, "Wow, I am kind of feeding into a culture in sports." So he could have had this epiphany. And, with this culture that, he's kind of like conflicted with, and then just like not done it, and like used those talents in some other way, and like met Dorothy, and I don't know. Wait, then you don't have a good premise for a movie, so maybe it's not a very good movie. I don't know.
But I think because you're not into the romance of this movie, that's the whole other half of this movie. It's not just him rebuilding his career solely around this one guy who's had a really hard time feeling appreciated, Rod Tidwell. It's also him learning to really open up and love another person.
But he couldn't even, there was ways that he could have helped Rod and not been his agent and been his friend, which is ultimately what he kind of had to do. But he always got clouded by this idea of what he was before. And that was just kind of...
But his mission statement wasn't about we want to tell all athletes to stop playing sports.
No, his mission statement was fewer clients,
less money.
Less money, yes.
And that is ultimately what he chose. That's what he did. He got Rod Tidwell. He was able to get Rod Tidwell a great contract. But we see that other athletes were reaching out to him at the very end. Because what I'm imagining happens is after that TV interview with Rod Tidwell and who was the commentator that he was talking to that makes him cry?
Firestein or Firestone? Roy Firestone. He had a show on ESPN where he would
make athletes cry.
Where he would interview people, and I think that was slightly exaggerated. They don't always cry, but
you're not going to make me do it. You're not going to make me cry. All these, Katarina Witt, who we were just talking about from Blades of Glory, Troy Aikman, a couple other athletes were kind of gathering around and talking to him. And I think the idea is he was able to sign a few others that he was able to give a lot of this very focused attention on.
And then he would focus on them, and then again not focus on Renee Zellweger and her son.
Well, it's the business they chose. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know. I can't. I don't know how to defend this movie. I mean, I really like it.
I think, like you said, you really think that the dialogue is great.
Dialogue's amazing.
I mean, debatable. And then you really like. I think you like the romance in it. I mean, I like a lot of the relationships. And I will say this. All the asinine sports stuff aside, the moments, the nice moments that he has with Dorothy those are the best parts of this movie to watch.
Yeah,
with her and her son.
Yeah,
like the scene after they go on their date and he slept over and it's the next morning. That is a great scene, and he handles it in a very cool way. And it's why isn't he this guy the rest of the movie? Because he's not. And it's just, it doesn't seem balanced to me.
Well, I'll say this too. He clearly was a person who, like they said, he was great at friendship, not good at intimacy. He was a workaholic. He always was thrown into his career. So he never had a lot of practice trying to build a solid romantic relationship with anybody.
Well,
and his relationship with Dorothy was the first time. And again, he's in his mid-30s, and she says she's the oldest 26-year-old she knows. So she's young. She's not, and it sounds like her husband had died kind of tragically. Who knows how.
I thought, was it died or left him?
Died. No, died.
Okay.
But she's young too, so it's not like anyone at that age or anyone at any age, honestly, has the answers.
No, but I think
he didn't have experience at being in a relationship. I mean, I thought the relationship with him and Ray was very sweet, and I mean, like she says, you really love my kid and you kind of like me too. But when he finally realized, seeing, when
there's times in this movie where I think he likes Ray more than her.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree yeah. Well, Ray is really cute. He's really sweet. Why don't you tell me who your favorite character was? I'm going to guess. I mean, I have an idea who you probably liked the most.
Ray.
Ray was your favorite?
Ray's my favorite character.
Aw, that's sweet.
He probably has maybe total, 10 minutes of screen time in this movie, maybe, because you only kind of see him a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I love watching Ray in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, some people might think he's the most ridiculous part of this movie.
No, he's really cute.
But he's entertaining. He's fun to watch. And most of those scenes with Ray are the ones where you're actually seeing real life, kind of more realistic Tom Cruise. And I'd like to feel like that's how he is in real life and not the persona that we see him on Oprah.
Is the best. Oh, God. Yeah, jumping on couches. So Ray's your favorite character.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my favorite scene it's one of the... God. I really like the scene where, with him in the car. With Ray and Renee Zellweger and him in the car.
When she's driving him to the airport?
Yes.
And he's just spouting off facts?
Yeah. And then, and then there's also the scene where, Ray gives him the hug and the kiss, when he's leaving and stuff like that. I mean, it's nice, but yeah, I mean, this was a hard rewatch for me. It does not fit into your nice, concise, short movie.
It doesn't, but you know what? It didn't feel long to me.
It was longer than 2 hours.
Yeah, it didn't feel long to me because I really enjoyed it. And I felt, for me, you needed to have as much of the sports footage as you did and the romance stuff.
Yeah.
It didn't feel too long to me.
I mean, okay, so if you pick one or the other and one of them makes it a better movie because it's unbalanced, you probably have a 90-minute movie. And then it fits in your criteria.
I wouldn't trim it. I would trim out Kelly Preston. She sucks.
Yeah, that whole thing where he had the other fiance and everything like that was kind of rough. I mean, it's part of building his character up and everything like that, but I was just not feeling it. So
in general, where do you I'm going to give you 4 characters and you rank them in order of who your favorite to least favorite.
Okay.
And I already know Rod is probably your least favorite character, so I'm not even going to throw him in there. So, Ray, Dorothy, Laurel, and Jerry Maguire.
In that order.
Okay.
In that order.
Oh, okay. So you liked Renee Zellweger in this movie then?
Yeah, I thought she was fine. I thought that she was a good character, and I thought she was fine. I liked how she ended the relationship because she actually knows who the hell she is.
Yeah.
Whereas, and maybe it was very, the whole wedding thing with them, and
that was a whole other thing I want to bring up. Go ahead.
And Rod being you didn't have the talk with her, did you? Just kind of goes and shows how Jerry is he's just not in his right mind. He's just going with the flow at that point. And then for her to say, yes, let's get married. She's on a path of I'm doing what's right for myself, my son, and for myself by taking the other job, not being a burden on Jerry.
Yeah.
Jerry can get his shit together. They're not breaking up. She's just moving.
Yeah.
And for him to be like, let's get married, like totally knowing that will manipulate her enough because he just heard her say like how that she's in love with him. Like, and just that aspect of it, just like
I don't know how she could have had that conversation in the kitchen with him still there. That was crazy.
I don't know.
So Europeans and Canadians wouldn't understand this movie. You know why?
Why?
Because they have socialized medicine.
True.
No one would ever have to get married for health care.
Well, and I didn't think that was the whole reason. I thought the whole reason...
He said, I know a way we can save on medical expenses and rent. Let's get married.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
If healthcare was a right in the United States, a huge part of this movie wouldn't even... a huge motivation for this movie wouldn't even be there.
So you're saying that...
If Bernie Sanders was
Medicare for all could have cured this movie being made and me having to see it, I'm all for it.
It certainly presented a conflict.
Okay, so I think I've bashed this movie a lot or given you a lot of shit for it. But I will give you some positives on it. There's really good music in this movie.
Oh yeah,
It's got a good soundtrack.
You gotta tell me you have sung "Free Fall" in the car like he did.
Oh no, that's not really my absolute favorite Tom Petty song.
There's at least one Tom Petty song that you've sung at the top of your lungs like that in the car.
Oh
okay,
yeah,
thank you.
Do you want me to name them or
no? You don't have to.
Okay, and lots of music street cred is in this movie. Glenn Frey, of the Eagles and solo fame, is the GM for the team that Rod plays for. Jan Wenner, who was founder of Rolling Stone magazine, who was Cameron Crowe's boss at one point, plays one of the head guys at the agency that the firm that he gets fired from. And you see shots of him, like up shots on a stairwell.
That's him standing upstairs? Okay. No lines, though, I don't think.
When he goes to the copy place to print out his mission statement, the guy helping him is Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains.
Got it. He's the long hair?
Yes, from Seattle. So he was in... I don't think the band played in Singles, so...
Got it.
He knows him. Not music related, but I will do this. Eric Stoltz makes his Cameron Crowe appearance, which I don't know if that pattern had stopped. If it stops with this movie, or if it happens in Vanilla Sky.
He wasn't in Almost Famous, right?
No.
Okay.
He definitely isn't in Almost Famous, and I don't know if he's in like Elizabethtown. I can't remember all of Cameron Crowe's movies at this time, but he makes his Cameron Crowe appearance because he was in Singles as the mime, and he was in Say Anything.
Yeah.
The other thing is he has that I wanted to point out is when, and maybe this might be one of my other favorite scenes because it's very real. I think in that Renee Zellweger comes to life and it like really shows like how smart she is when she breaks up with him. He says to her, "I don't run, I stick." And immediately I was like, bullshit, Tom Cruise. There are montages online of you running in every freaking movie.
He runs in every... And
then later he runs when Rod gets, we think he gets hurt and he's running. And I was like, oh, there he is. Now he's running.
He runs in everything. He's especially been running in like the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, go online, YouTube, Tom Cruise running, and montages of him running. So, bullshit, Tom Cruise, you do run.
I'm not sure if Jerry Maguire is my favorite character or not. He might be.
He better not be.
Well, Dorothy is wonderful. Dorothy's wonderful. I love her a lot. I love Bonnie Hunt in this movie.
If you don't say Ray or any of the three leading ladies in this movie who are
Regina King.
Regina King, while she's kind of like, her character is kind of over the top, I think, in some ways, maybe, but she is so good as Rod's wife.
Oh yeah.
And see how she's like, I'm pregnant, so I'm emotional, whatever. She was great.
Yeah, she's great.
So you either have to say Ray, Dorothy, or I can't remember.
Laurel
Regina
or
King.
Marcy?
Marcy.
I think
I don't know about
think
Laurel. I don't know about Laurel.
You don't like Bonnie Hunt?
I don't dislike her, but I wouldn't put her as like.
I
one
think
of the
I'll
top
say
characters.
Dorothy then. I mean, I like Ray a lot too, but his screen time is so limited. I mean,
So we're saying that Ray and Dorothy are our favorite characters. So a whole movie about Dorothy and Ray probably would have been a better movie, and it wouldn't be called The Room.
But Matt, again, I think because we were inundated with so much Tom Cruise growing up.
Yes.
That this movie was such a turn, was such a different kind of movie. I think I finally was like, oh, thank you.
This is your favorite Tom Cruise movie?
Absolutely. Yes. It's definitely my favorite Tom Cruise movie. And I like other Tom Cruise movies, but this is definitely my favorite one.
I would
He's
agree.
very, very charming in this.
Yeah, I mean, he has like his action movies, Top Gun, all the Mission Impossibles, Jack
Edge of
Reacher,
Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow, which I actually
Edge of
like.
Tomorrow is
Edge
great.
of Tomorrow. I do. That's probably of the last 15 years my favorite one. But
Jack
then
pointed out that is also a movie where he's knocked down from being really great at something and having to kind of start over in a humble way.
multiple times he starts over.
Live, die, repeat.
Yeah, but then he has like movies where he tries to do something more artistic, and I think that like this could be like one of those movies, Vanilla Sky, which
That
I
movie's
do
kinda
not.
odd.
I do not like that movie.
Yeah, I'm not really
Yeah.
into it.
And then probably the one that stands out the most for me is Magnolia.
Yeah.
And his character in that, like you're supposed to hate him in that.
Yeah.
So
He's
I mean, can we agree that like while like for our movie watching generation, he is one of those superstars where everyone just thinks like, oh, if Tom Cruise is in it, it's gonna be gold. But you and I are like, well, yeah, I don't know about that.
well, I mean, I don't rush out to see his movies.
No.
I mean, we'll eventually talk about this because of movies coming out next summer. But Matt and I did see Top Gun in the theater.
We did.
We saw it, within a week or two of when it opened.
Yeah.
But that's like the Tom Cruise I remember most of the time is Maverick.
God,
he's such a cocky asshole in that movie.
I'll tell you this. If I were to say what my favorite Tom Cruise movies are, the first one I'll say, not like it as my favorite, but the first one I'll say is The Outsiders, and you barely see him in it.
Yeah, he's a minor character.
Character in that, but I like Risky Business.
I have not seen it. Oh, put it on our list.
Okay, why are we having this conversation? What the hell? So you are making me watch Jerry Maguire, and you haven't seen Risky Business?
Nope. Guess what we'll be watching at some point, folks?
I mean, I'm not going to put Risky Business on my list.
I think you should.
No, I'm not going to. I mean, we don't have to.
It's your
talk
favorite Tom Cruise movie.
But that doesn't mean I have to put it on a list that where it
But then I'll get a
influenced
chance
my
to.
life.
I'll have a chance to watch.
Maybe you should just watch it. Then maybe you should just watch it and do an addendum to this podcast and be like, I don't know why I was wasting everyone's time with Jerry Maguire when you could have been talking about Risky Business.
I've seen enough of Risky Business to still know that I think Tom Cruise looks his best in Jerry Maguire than he ever did before.
He's very young. And like he's much younger in Risky Business.
Yeah, because it's like 14, 15 years before.
Yeah. But and he doesn't have like his fancy like slicky haircut or anything like that. But
he's sliding around in his socks and underwear.
That is like so
and his
minor.
sunglasses.
That is so minor in that movie. The fact that like that whole scene gets out there is just to sell tickets and is so minor in that movie. I mean, if you're going to do that, if they wanted to sell tickets, they could either have like him slide in his socks and his underwear or naked Rebecca De Mornay. One of those two would have sold more tickets, but they didn't do that. Anyway.
Okay, so Outsiders, Risky Business.
Yeah, that's it. Outsiders. And
Cocktail's not going to be on your list?
I'm not a huge fan of Cocktail.
I've grown to appreciate Cocktail a lot.
I will say this.
Over the years.
I will say this. I probably haven't watched any or all of Cocktail in 20 years. but I remember not being that into it. But then again, I was like,
there's some great things about that movie, which we may talk about at some point. We may have to do another Tom Cruise episode.
But
Cocktail and Risky Business. We'll have to do it sometime.
But we've talked about before, like 80s movies that are action oriented. Because like of that time, like the Reagan era and everything like that. There was lots of military kind of movies. You and I have either on the podcast or offline. You and I have talked about like that.
There's like an ad for the Air Force in the middle of Top Gun.
Well, the whole
movie,
and that is the whole movie. But like Top Gun to me is I kind of like that movie. It's
I mean, I don't dislike it.
And again, if he's playing kind of an arrogant ass that has to get humbled. Oh wait, his friend dies, and whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
it's but because I grew up with watching that and we saw it in the theater and everything like that. I think probably I have a small soft spot for that. But it goes like Top Gun. Then like a huge gap, Outsiders, Risky Business.
Okay.
And then...
So Jerry Maguire's nowhere on there?
No, I'm not. I mean, I didn't see this movie in the theater. I think I only watched it because my wife was like, hey, I like this movie, and we watched it. And I was kind of like, oh, okay. And I watched it this time. And
I know from firsthand that she really likes this movie.
I know she does. And lots of people do. I'm not saying that I am the end-all, be-all, everyone must like only the movies I like.
Thank God.
Right? I mean...
Everyone should have their own opinion.
Everyone should have their own opinion on shit.
Especially since you kind of categorically hate all romantic comedies.
Not all of them.
But one or two, right?
Probably. There's probably 10. There's probably 10 of the hundreds of them.
Thousands of them, Matt.
10.
Yeah.
I mean, Barefoot in the Park. That's a great movie. Ever seen that?
I can't remember.
Robert Redford and Jane Fonda.
I'm not sure if I've
They
seen
live
that.
in an apartment. That's a fun movie. And that's the first one that came off the top of my head right now. But, Barefoot in the Park and what's another one I like?
Well, I don't want you to hurt yourself trying to think of it.
Man, my head might explode.
We'll save this for another conversation.
I would say Wedding Singer is a romantic comedy.
That's also a nostalgia movie, though. That's a parody of the 80s.
You know what's funny though is
I love that movie.
The things that are funny in that movie, to me, aren't the parody parts of it. I just see that movie as a movie that takes place in the 80s.
Yeah,
but that's not how it was really made or marketed. But
it's probably the only Adam Sandler movie I like. So.
Justified. I mean, do you like more Adam Sandler movies or more Tom Cruise movies?
Oh, I like more Tom Cruise movies for sure. For sure.
So
yeah.
So we've decided that Ray and Dorothy.
Yeah, Dorothy.
And you don't have a best scene.
I think overall I like the romantic scenes more. So you can say. The scene in the office where she's, choosing to leave with him, I think is great. Their date, oh my God, everything about their date from that whole 10-minute segment of her walking in and him saying that's not a dress, that's an Audrey Hepburn movie.
Yeah.
And with his interactions with Ray, and then then Secret Garden playing as they're going out to the car, just that whole 10-15 minute segment, I just think is so good. And then.
Yeah. I'll say that was one of the more entertaining parts of the movie.
And then the very end, when he finally realizes that he wants to be with her and he runs, the shot of him running after Rod is okay, running through the airport to get to her.
Yeah.
And then him giving his big romantic speech, the hello and blah, blah, blah. And then she's like,
"Did you complete me?" that he ripped off from the deaf couple.
No, but it was special. It was special because,
I get it. I know.
Because he'd already asked her.
I understand.
He'd already said to her when she wanted divorce, and he's like, "What do you want, my soul?" And she's like, "Yeah, I deserve at least that." And then he finally is able to bare his soul to her and give her that. Oh, yeah, so romantic.
Yeah, I think that one thing that that we have kind of nailed down in this movie is that. Of a movie that is on this episode because of sports, the sports part of this movie is the least tolerable part for me in this movie, and The rom-com part, which you would think would not be the thing I like, is probably the more watchable part of the movie for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you think about it, part of his whole mission statement is that there's something wrong with the sports culture.
Well, and
so we get to see lots of reasons why he's right.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the whole publishing that thing was also kind of his ego. To be like, yeah, I'm going to make copies of this. I'm going to give it to everybody, and everyone's going to listen to me. And it's like, well, maybe you're just kind of saying these things, and maybe you shouldn't print them out. Like, write it up. That's cool. I mean,
like an angry letter. You write an angry letter, but you leave it in a drawer and don't send it, and see if you can cool off a couple days later.
Well, and maybe it's more like a letter to himself.
Yeah.
Like, keep it as like a letter to yourself, and be like, as a reminder, like, I am not happy doing what I'm doing right now, the way I'm doing it, at least. How can I change my life? And he didn't have to give it out. He didn't have to get fired. He could have went off, rode off on his horse in the sunset, kind of thing. But then you don't also have the movie. I get it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, if we're looking at the character, he didn't really handle that, his whole, realization of how unhappy he was. He didn't really handle that very well because, again, his ego got in the way.
Well, I think, again, because he was in such an insanely competitive environment. And not just because it's sports, but just, he says, we're in this world of fierce competition. Mm-hmm. So, because think about it. Okay, so let's say he did write that mission statement and he just kept it to himself, and then he tried to implement the mission statement for just himself. He would have eventually gotten fired, because if he was really trying to cut back and
that's the whole reason he got fired anyway, is because he didn't want to give anyone the perception like that was a good idea and it would take down the agency.
I'm just saying he got fired because he was outed. But if he could have kept it all to himself and then just started to modify his behavior over time, he still probably would have gotten fired, because he wouldn't have wanted to be the same cutthroat asshole that everyone else at that agency was.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really any practical way for him to put into practice this grand mission statement that he came up with.
No, but he could have, at that point, found a way out. I mean, he could have still...
But he didn't know what else to do. He'd been doing it his whole professional career.
Well,
since his early 20s. He built that office.
Well,
he built that company.
Well, he really just kind of needed to he could have very easily just been like, I don't want to do this anymore, and gone on his own anyway, and people would have probably respected him for that. He would have had to start over, but he could have done it his own way, which he had to do anyways, and he could have gone his own way instead of doing that and getting fired. I mean, I think people kind of have, it's hard. I've never put myself in a situation to quit a job and
with no plan.
Well, not just that, but just with this idea, wow, I really got to do something else and go out.
You're not fulfilling your dream career or whatever.
Well, it's not just that. It's just that, I like what I do, but the idea, he kind of, because, like you said, he built the company. Mm-hmm. He could have very easily been like, you know what? I've kind of done what I need to do here, and I'm going to go start and do something else. No offense to you guys. I'm just going to go on my own. And yeah, we'll be competitors or whatnot, but kind of want to do my own thing now. Good luck to you guys. And he might have been successful. Maybe he wouldn't have been. Who knows? Yeah. If you go out that way, at least you're kind of saving face, and you still have your street cred and whatnot. But. You don't have Jay Moore trying to like fuck you in the ass the whole movie. I don't think I've ever liked him in anything.
I can't think of anything he's been in that I was like, oh wow, great, Jay Moore's in this. He's so cool. I don't think I have, but he's really horrible in this movie. He's such a jerk.
Not every MTV VJ can, launch their career into the Daily Show or whatever.
Oh my god.
Talk about. And I think as a person, he kind of rubs me the wrong way in his own real life anyway.
But I don't really know anything about him.
I think he's kind of red.
Oh, that's yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
well, I mean, we've really dug into trying to understand. You trying to make me explain why I like this movie, and you explaining why you really don't like it.
Yeah. But, sorry.
No, I mean, you don't have to apologize. I mean, again, I enjoyed rewatching it. In fact, I'd forgotten just how much I really liked it.
Well, I'm glad you got to rekindle your love for Jerry Maguire.
Mm-hmm. I may watch it again.
Yeah.
Even with my busy TV schedule, I'm actively doing an Office rewatch, which I'd never done before, so it's been fun.
How's that going?
I just started the 3rd season. So.
Good for you. You know what you could have been doing instead of watching The Office for a 3rd season? Or getting to the 3rd season? You could have rewatched Lost Highway, and that would have been way more worth your time. No, I'm just kidding. The Office is great.
No, I have other David Fincher projects I need to do first.
David Lynch.
David Lynch.
David Fincher. Watch them both. They're both
David
great.
Fincher's great. David Lynch
is great.
I need to
He
learn.
just won a special award.
Like I said, when I think the show
the Film Academy just gave him a special award.
Nice. I think I'm going to move over to Twin Peaks when I'm done doing my Office rewatch, so I can finally dip my toe in to something that's not so weird.
You're welcome to watch it with me anytime.
Cool.
What episode are you on? I'll just put it on any random episode. It's all good. Well, I think that this...
Do you feel like you've been tackled? Do you feel like you've been knocked out in the end zone?
No, because
Do you need to hear the crowd cheering to wake you up?
No, because
you can do your touchdown dance?
No, because I can always go put on Blades of Glory and make myself feel better. Such a great movie.
You can do triple sow cow. You can do some Iron Lotuses later.
Question. Tom Cruise is not cast in this movie, and John Cusack is. Do I like or you like Jerry Maguire better?
You know what? I kind of feel like John Cusack in High Fidelity was kind of a Tom Cruise-ish role in the sense that...
Yeah. I see that.
In the sense of his cockiness. Because he was a challenge in that movie.
He was a
challenge in High Fidelity.
He had his music elitism.
Oh, speaking of High Fidelity and Jerry Maguire... The
yes, Dick is the
au pair.
Is the
au pair is the preferred term, Matt.
Yes, the Manny.
The Manny, yes.
Yes.
So
maybe I would have liked this movie more. It wasn't Tom Cruise and it was John Cusack. But you're right, there are parallels, him kind of having his career and having some unhappiness and it being kind of a movie about music and a rom-com. There you go.
There you go.
So, boom, John Cusack can tell us about that someday. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening to us compare notes on Jerry Maguire
and Blades of Glory.
Blades of Glory, definitely watch that.
That's amazing.
Jerry Maguire,
You up to your discretion.
You've heard it from her. She picked the movie, and now she's saying discretion. I mean, Blades of Glory, I'm telling you, go watch this movie. And she's giving you discretion on Jerry Maguire. I think she
just wants to argue with me.
She just wants to buckle.
He just wants to argue. I'm validating his feelings, and he's arguing with me.
Thanks for agreeing with me.
We are such brother and sister.
I am a human onion.
Sorry, guys.
It's mind-boggling.
bottle. Your thoughts are so crazy; they can't be trapped in a bottle, or whatever, however he described it.
I am never satisfied. It is a curse.
Okay, folks, we've reached a peak silliness here. My name is Nancy.
My name is Matthew. This is Fighting Over the VCR. Thank you.